I was 42 years old, a mid-level marketing manager named Alex Miller, and I thought I had everything figured out. I had a comfortable home, a stable career, and a wife, Chloe Miller, who was, by all appearances, climbing the corporate ladder as a high-level consultant. Our life was routine, perhaps a little too routine, but I believed in the foundation we had built over a decade. In early November, Chloe announced she had secured an invitation to an exclusive, high-level corporate consultant conference in San Francisco, a major networking opportunity that she said would solidify her future. I was genuinely proud of her ambition. She was leaving for 5 days, and I missed her already. I decided to surprise her. I booked a red-eye flight, scraping together miles and taking a cheap, modest hotel room near the conference venue she'd given me. I wasn't going to stay the whole time. Just one night, enough to walk in, give her a hug, share a bottle of champagne, and remind her how much I loved her and supported her career. I even bought a small, silly gift, a miniature Golden Gate Bridge souvenir, to make her laugh. I pictured the look on her face when she saw me. It was going to be perfect. But the moment I landed in San Francisco, that picture shattered. I hailed a cab and gave the driver the address Chloe had provided for the conference hotel, 1470 Industrial Way. The driver looked at me strangely. Industrial Way? That's mostly warehouses and low-key business parks, sir. Are you sure you don't mean the convention center downtown? I insisted, showing him the address Chloe had texted me, complete with the name of the supposed conference hotel, the Business Loft Suites. We pulled up to a drab, gray building nestled between a packaging plant and a self-storage unit. This was not the venue for a high-level, exclusive consulting conference that cost thousands of dollars and promised networking with industry titans. My stomach dropped. I paid the driver and walked inside, where a bored-looking attendant confirmed 2 things. First, they had no large conference booked this week, and second, there was no Chloe Miller registered at all. I stood there, holding that miniature Golden Gate Bridge, feeling the first icy touch of suspicion. Why would she lie about the location? Why use a fake hotel name? It wasn't just a simple mistake. It felt calculated. I left the industrial park, the cheap souvenir feeling like a lead weight in my hand, and retreated to my modest hotel room, determined to figure out what was actually happening. The excitement of the surprise was gone, replaced by a cold, unsettling dread. I sat on the edge of the uncomfortable bed, trying to rationalize. Maybe the conference moved last minute. Maybe she stayed at a friend's place. But the lie about the hotel was specific and intentional. I pulled out my laptop and logged into our shared bank account. I needed a clue, a truth hidden beneath the layers of deception. I scrolled through recent transactions, and that's when I saw it. A charge from 2 nights ago for $1,850. The vendor name was L'Ambroisie. I recognized the name instantly, not because we had ever been there, we couldn't afford it, but because it was regularly featured in luxury magazines. It was an exclusive, Michelin-starred restaurant known for its extreme prices and celebrity clientele. This was not a business park lunch. I tried to construct a plausible scenario. Perhaps a major client had treated her. But why then the lie about the conference location? Why the secrecy? I cross-referenced the restaurant's address. It was in Pacific Heights, miles away from the industrial wasteland she claimed to be working in. This wasn't a quick deviation. This was her actual focus. The internal conflict was agonizing. I wanted to believe her, to call her and ask, why L'Ambroisie? But the lie about the conference location paralyzed me. If I called, she would just invent a new lie, and the truth would vanish. I knew instinctively that if I wanted the truth, I had to find it myself, quietly. I grabbed my coat, hailed another cab, and instructed the driver to take me to Pacific Heights. The neighborhood itself felt like a different universe. Mansions, high-end galleries, and polished black cars. The dread intensified with every block. When the cab dropped me off across the street from L'Ambroisie, I felt a physical sickness. I scanned the opulent, dimly lit interior through the large front windows, my heart pounding against my ribs. And then I saw her, Chloe Miller, my wife, sitting at a small, intimate table, laughing, her hand resting casually on the arm of the man across from her. And that man was immediately, undeniably recognizable. It was Julian Vance, the tech trillionaire, the man who had revolutionized 5 industries, whose net worth was staggering, and who was known for his ruthless business acumen and highly publicized and brief relationships. This was not a colleague. This was not a client dinner. The shock hit me like a physical blow, knocking the air out of my lungs. Chloe was not at a professional conference. She was dining intimately, sharing expensive champagne with a man who could buy and sell our entire life 10 times over. The entire trip, the entire conference, was a carefully constructed fiction designed to cover this. And that was just the first lie I uncovered. If you want to hear how deep this conspiracy went, and trust me, it went deep, hit that subscribe button, because what I discovered next changed everything, confirming that this was not just infidelity, but a calculated financial plot. I forced myself to breathe. The instinct to storm across the street, crash through the doors, and scream her name was overwhelming. But that would have been the emotional, foolish move. That would have given her the upper hand, allowing her to frame me as the jealous, unstable husband, destroying any chance I had at securing my own future. I needed clarity, not chaos. I stepped back into the shadow of a nearby delivery alleyway entrance, pulling my phone from my pocket. My hands were shaking, but my mind was suddenly sharp, operating on pure, cold survival instinct. I was no longer a husband finding his wife cheating. I was Alex Miller, mid-level marketing manager, executing a strategic documentation plan. I zoomed in with my phone's telephoto lens. The quality was surprisingly good in the low light. I captured photo after photo, Chloe leaning in, her genuine, dazzling smile, a smile I hadn't seen directed at me in months. Julian Vance holding her hand across the table, the shared intimacy over the crystal glasses, the clear evidence of affection, not professional networking. I spent nearly 45 minutes documenting every single nuance of their interaction. I noted the time, the date, and the specific table location. I even managed to capture the license plate of the black armored SUV waiting nearby, clearly part of Julian Vance's elite security detail. I documented Chloe's body language, relaxed, flirtatious, deeply personal. There was no sign of the rigid corporate consultant Chloe I knew. This was a woman completely comfortable and invested in the man opposite her. I understood then that this wasn't a sudden, regrettable lapse in judgment. This was a relationship that had been cultivated and planned. This was a secret life, hidden under the guise of career advancement. I needed more than just photos of an affair. I needed proof that this was tied to the financial deception I suspected. Most people would have exploded right there, creating a scene that would have been immediately dismissed as marital drama. If you respect the strategic approach, the decision to gather evidence methodically instead of causing a catastrophe, tap that like button. That strategic restraint was the single most important decision I made that night. But the most devastating piece of evidence was still to come, and I knew I had to get closer to understand the true intent behind this calculated relationship. Was this just a fling, or was it the engine of a financial plot designed to ruin me? As the dinner ended, the couple rose. I pressed myself further into the shadows of the alleyway, heart hammering against my ribs, praying they wouldn't look my way. Julian Vance's security detail moved swiftly, pulling the armored vehicle right up to the curb. The Trillionaire and Chloe paused briefly right near the alley entrance just as the car door was being opened. It was a moment of vulnerability, a casual goodbye before entering the high-security vehicle. It was a risk, but I knew I had to take it. I subtly activated my phone's voice memo app, holding the phone low against my leg, hoping the ambient street noise would mask the action. They were talking quietly, intimately, but the proximity was just enough for my phone's microphone to pick up key phrases. Julian Vance was saying something about an offshore account, and then I heard Chloe's voice, chillingly clear and businesslike, despite the romantic setting. "I just need confirmation on the timeline for the separation, Julian," she said, her voice dropping slightly. "I don't want to jeopardize the agreement." Julian Vance responded, his voice low and confident. "Don't worry, darling. My team is handling the prenuptial analysis.
The asset protection strategy is solid on my end.
Alex won't see it coming. The words echoed in my head, transforming the entire situation from a simple, painful affair into something far more sinister and calculated. This wasn't just betrayal. This was premeditated financial warfare. Chloe wasn't cheating on me. She was strategically positioning herself against me, using a trillionaire's resources to secure a massive financial advantage in a divorce she had already planned. The conference was the cover story for executing a financial exit strategy. I stood frozen until the car pulled away. The silence left behind was deafening. The sheer, cold determination of her plan to build a new life using Julian Vance's wealth while simultaneously ensuring I was left financially gutted was devastating. It wasn't an accident. It was a strategy. I was just the obstacle she needed to navigate to reach her ultimate goal. I immediately left the alleyway, walking blocks before I dared to check my phone. I listened to the snippet of the recording 5 times, confirming the horror. I deleted the location data from my phone's GPS history, scrubbing every trace of my presence in San Francisco. I booked the very next flight home, determined to act like the loving, unsuspecting husband I was supposed to be. I had the proof of premeditation. Now, I needed to transform this raw evidence into an airtight legal strategy before she could execute the rest of her plan. That moment when everything clicks into place and you realize the truth, the awful clarity that changes your life forever. Drop a comment if you've experienced that kind of devastating realization. The flight home was the longest, quietest journey of my life. I sat in that cramped seat, staring out the window, reviewing the evidence, the high-quality photos, the video clips, and the damning 15-second audio clip confirming the separation timeline and asset protection strategy. I realized I had only days, maybe hours, before Chloe returned and potentially made her move. I had to file first. I had to preempt her. The moment I landed, I didn't go home. I went straight to the best divorce attorney I could find, who specialized in complex assets and financial misconduct. Her name was Evelyn Reed, and her reputation was formidable. I walked into Evelyn's austere office and laid out the entire story, placing my phone on her desk. She watched the videos, examined the photos, and listened to the audio snippet twice, her expression remaining perfectly neutral. When it finished, she looked up, her eyes sharp.
"Alex," she said, "this is not standard infidelity. This is evidence of premeditation and potential financial misconduct, specifically wasting of marital assets, which is critical under state law. She used marital funds to travel, ostensibly for work, but really to establish a financial relationship with Mr. Vance that directly benefits her future divorce settlement. If we can prove this connection, we can eliminate her claims to alimony and secure a much more favorable division of assets." Evelyn immediately advised me to hire a private investigator, PI, to establish a comprehensive timeline of the affair and, more importantly, track the financial transfers. I hired Frank Morrison that same afternoon. I tasked him with documenting any communications between Chloe and Julian Vance, and specifically, any interaction she might have had with a divorce attorney before my trip.
The next 48 hours were a blur of strategy. I provided Frank with access to our bills, credit card statements, and shared calendar. Meanwhile, Evelyn and her team began drafting the legal petition. The goal was simple: file the papers before Chloe even had a chance to speak to her own attorney, ensuring I was the petitioner, the one controlling the narrative. I went home and played the role of the perfect husband. I cleaned the house meticulously. I bought flowers. I prepared a complex meal, the one she always requested when she returned from a long trip. Every smile I offered, every question I asked about her conference was a calculated performance. I was a man living 2 parallel lives, the loving husband waiting for his wife, and the strategic petitioner preparing to dismantle her entire calculated future. The tension was suffocating, but the focus was absolute. For exclusive stories of justice and strategy like this, where people fight back against calculated deception and win, consider becoming a channel member. We dive deep into the strategic methods that save people from financial ruin. Chloe returned late Tuesday evening, tired but glowing.
carrying a small, expensive-looking handbag she claimed was a client gift. She gave me a vague, rehearsed account of the successful conference, mentioning a few generic industry terms and pretending to be exhausted. I listened, nodding, making her tea, confirming her narrative. I was playing my role perfectly. The moment she was in the shower, I checked my email. Frank Morrison's preliminary report had arrived. It confirmed multiple luxury trips over the last 8 months, all disguised as consulting work, matching Julian Vance's known travel itinerary.
More damningly, the report detailed large, untraceable deposits Chloe had made into a new private bank account. Deposits that Frank believed were seed money or gifts linked to Julian Vance's financial advice, designed to be shielded from marital assets. The evidence package was complete. My San Francisco documentation, the damning audio snippet, and Frank's professional financial trail report. That night, Chloe, completely unaware of the legal storm gathering around her, began pushing for a minor financial decision. "Honey," she said casually over dinner, "we should probably sell those tech stocks we bought last year. I heard the market is volatile, and I think we should diversify." She was trying to liquidate assets under the guise of financial prudence, clearly following Vance's asset protection strategy. I smiled, agreed vaguely, and changed the subject.
The next morning, I met Evelyn one final time. She confirmed that with the evidence of Chloe's premeditated financial misconduct and the clear documentation of her relationship with Julian Vance, we had an extremely strong case to secure the marital home, retain my 401k, and most importantly, eliminate any potential alimony claims. This wasn't just a divorce. It was a legal victory based on strategy. The legal papers were filed at 10 a.m. Alex Miller, petitioner. The trap was set. Now all I had to do was wait for the hammer to drop. I felt a profound sense of calm. The emotional pain was still there, a dull ache, but it was overshadowed by the cold satisfaction of knowing I had outsmarted a calculated 8-month-long deception. I've pinned something in the first comment that might help if you're navigating a difficult relationship situation. It's about ensuring you have the legal and strategic knowledge to protect yourself when facing calculated deceit. The confrontation happened 2 days later. I had arranged for the process server to arrive at 5:30 p.m., just as Chloe was getting ready for what she claimed was another client dinner, likely another rendezvous with Julian Vance. When the doorbell rang, I was in the living room, reading a book, maintaining the facade of absolute normalcy. Chloe opened the door, expecting a package, and was met by a stone-faced process server who handed her the thick envelope. "You have been served," the server stated professionally, and walked away. Chloe looked at the envelope, confused, then down at the cover page, Miller v. Miller, petition for dissolution of marriage. Her face went white, then immediately crimson. "Alex, what is this? What have you done?"
she shrieked, tearing into the papers. I didn't move. I simply lowered my book and looked at her with an expression I hadn't practiced, but which came naturally. Cold, controlled disappointment. "It's what it says, Chloe. I filed for divorce." She immediately went into denial mode, the consultant persona taking over. "This is ridiculous. We can fix this. You're being paranoid. Is this about my trip? I told you it was work, Alex." She started demanding to know where I got the idea, attempting to shift the blame and guilt onto me. That's when I stood up. I walked over to the desk and picked up a sealed manila envelope. "I know exactly where you were, Chloe," I stated, my voice steady. "I know about Lombroisi. I know about Julian Vance." I handed her the envelope. She opened it, her hands trembling.
Inside, she found the high-resolution photos of her and Vance holding hands, the receipt for the $1,850 dinner, and the transcript of the audio reporting. The damning line was highlighted in yellow, the timeline for the separation. Her eyes darted from the photos to me, the color draining from her face as the realization hit her. I had been there. I knew the truth before she even returned. Her entire calculated plan had been documented, analyzed, and countered before she could make her first move. The fight went out of her instantly. The anger dissolved into pure, petrified shock. She sank into a chair, the papers scattering around her. How did you know? She whispered, the strategic consultant replaced by a terrified woman facing the consequences of her greed. She tried one last maneuver, attempting to blame Julian Vance, claiming he manipulated her.
I shut her down immediately. I don't care about his involvement, Chloe. I care about the fact that you used our marital resources under the guise of love and career ambition to plan a calculated financial exit strategy designed to ruin me. The evidence of premeditation is irrefutable, and my attorney has it all. If this moment of justice, watching a calculated deceiver realize their plot has failed, gave you any satisfaction, the super thanks button is right there. It helps me bring more of these stories of strategic self-defense to light. The legal proceedings were swift and brutal, mostly because Evelyn Reed had built an iron cage of evidence. Chloe's attorney, upon reviewing Frank Morrison's PI report and the San Francisco documentation, immediately recognized the futility of fighting. The evidence of premeditation and financial misconduct was too strong.
They knew that if the case went to trial, Alex's evidence could be used not only against her financially, but also professionally. The outcome was exactly what Evelyn and I had planned. We pushed for a swift settlement favorable to me, minimizing the emotional and financial cost of a long court battle. First, I secured the marital home. It was where I had built my life, and the idea of her profiting from its sale after her calculated deceit was unacceptable. Second, I retained the majority of my 401k and other long-term investments. Most critically, the documentation of her premeditated financial maneuvering with Julian Vance was used to successfully eliminate any potential alimony claims. Her entire plan to secure a massive payout fueled by a trillionaire's advice collapsed. She walked away with only what was legally mandated, a fraction of what she had intended.
The consequences extended far beyond the courtroom. Chloe attempted to leverage Julian Vance for support, but his team, ever conscious of reputation, issued a cold, concise statement confirming only a brief business association with Chloe Miller, emphasizing that any personal matters were unrelated to Vance Global. He cut her off completely, proving she was nothing more than a disposable asset in his world. Her reputation in the corporate consulting circle was severely damaged. When the true, calculated nature of her actions, using her career as a cover for a financial scheme, became known, clients distanced themselves. Trust is everything in that industry, and Chloe had proven she was fundamentally untrustworthy, not just personally, but strategically. Her career advancement goals were effectively halted. She had played a high-stakes game and lost everything she had calculated to gain.
Everything about documentation, evidence gathering, and legal protection is covered in what I've pinned in the comments. Worth checking out if you want to understand how to turn the tables in a situation like this. 6 months later, the house felt quiet, but profoundly peaceful. The divorce was finalized, and the air of anxiety that had defined the last year of my marriage had finally lifted. I had spent those months pouring my energy into my career, resulting in a long overdue promotion and a substantial raise. I was 20 pounds lighter, sleeping soundly, and focused entirely on rebuilding my own life, free from the shadow of calculated deceit. The financial security I had fought for allowed me to breathe. I didn't have to worry about rebuilding from zero. I had simply protected what was mine. I often reflected on that moment in the San Francisco alleyway.
The choice between emotional confrontation and strategic documentation. That strategic approach saved me years of financial hardship and emotional torture. I learned a deep, painful lesson about trust. Trust is not blind faith. It is the confidence that someone will honor their commitments. When that confidence is shattered, you must rely on verification and documentation. I had to learn the difference between loving someone and being strategically prepared for their failure to honor the relationship. I also started dating again, tentatively. Her name is Sarah. Our relationship is built on complete, open transparency, a stark contrast to the layers of deception I had navigated with Chloe. Sarah is kind, honest, and there are no secret trips or hidden financial maneuvers. It feels healthier, more grounded and real. Chloe had sought to gain everything through deception. She ended up with the minimum. I sought to protect myself through strategy. I ended up with peace and a future. Stories like this, of people who survived devastating betrayal and came out stronger, using logic and strategy to overcome emotional warfare, they matter. If this one mattered to you, a super thanks keeps them coming. It validates the hard work of bringing these complex truths to light. The true betrayal wasn't the affair itself. Affairs are often driven by passion or poor judgment. What destroyed me and ultimately destroyed Chloe's plan was the cold, calculated financial plotting disguised as love. She had used me, our marriage, and our joint assets as a launch pad for her relationship with a trillionaire, intending to discard me when the timing was optimal for her financial gain.
I learned that in moments of crisis, the most powerful tool you possess is control over your emotions. By turning my shock into strategy, by documenting everything, and by seeking professional counsel immediately, I was able to dismantle her intricate plot. I didn't get angry, I got evidence. I didn't beg, I filed. The final wisdom I gained is this: always trust your instincts. If something feels like a lie, it probably is. And when you find yourself facing calculated deception, remember that documentation is your armor and strategy is your weapon. Money cannot buy true happiness, nor can it cover up moral bankruptcy. Chloe learned that lesson the hard way. I learned it through necessity, and it saved my life. I hope my story empowers you to look closer, listen harder, and always be prepared to protect what is rightfully yours.